How does a kid from the housing projects make it to the corporate boardroom? This is the Leaders of Transformation podcast. And on this show, we interview difference makers and world changers who are disrupting for good. Thank you for listening. I'm Nicole Jansen, your host, and our guest today is Steve White. Steve, actually, when I talk about that climb from the housing project to the corporate boardroom, is his story. And it is the result of an uncompromising attitude and work ethic. He is the president, or was the president, of Comcast Cable's West division for 11 years. He was responsible for all of Comcast's operations in the Western U.S., leading nearly 30,000 employees, serving almost 11 million customers, and driving annual revenue of nearly $18 billion. Today, he serves as in the role as special counsel to the CEO of Comcast Cable, the largest division of Comcast Corporation, and which is one of the U.S.'s top 20 companies. So huge success. He's got a book out there called Uncompromising, which just came out, and it is available in print, available in audio version, and it's also an ebook version. So you can go to stevewhitespeaks.com to get a copy, or of course, wherever books are sold. Today, we're going to talk about his new book, Uncompromising. He's going to talk about its journey and what it really takes for you to rise above your circumstances and live a life of impact and purpose and success. Now, before we dive in, I do want to do a shout out to the team at Smith Publicity. I always like to thank those that are supporting this show, and they recommended Steve, so thank you to them. And one last thing is our podcast is actually brought to you by my coaching and training company. So if you are a leader who wants to be better, do better, make a greater impact, then you can go to leadersoftransformation.com/coaching, and you can learn a little bit more about the leadership coaching that I provide. And if you want to book a private consultation with me, you can do that there. There is a link to my calendar. So with that, Steve, I want to just bring on our guest here, Steve, and dive into this conversation today. Steve, welcome to Leaders of Transformation.
Great, Nicole. So glad to be with you. Thank you.
It is a pleasure. And we didn't talk that, it wasn't that long ago. And I just knew that your story had to be told. And of course, your book just came out. So congratulations on that. I know that I read it and it was very powerful. There's a lot of great books out there, but this book was speaking to me in terms of, like, when you talk about being uncompromising and having that, that purposeful fight and all of that, it's so important, especially nowadays. So so tell us a little bit more about your story, kind of like your backstory, and then how did you get from where you were to where you are today?
Well, I'll try to be brief, Nicole. So thank you again for having me. But Nicole, I was set up to be the perfect victim. Single mother, 8th grade education. She was raising 4 boys by herself in the city of Indianapolis, had just recently left my father. She was 29 years old. While she had a marriage license, she didn't even have a driver's license and had never held a full-time job. So we relocated from Florida to Indianapolis to follow one of her brothers, my uncle. And so I was the perfect victim. But I remember my mother's first job when we arrived in Indianapolis. She cleaned motel rooms. And Nicole, that's motel with an M, not hotel with an H. So there's no spa, there's no in-room dining. This is a place where you pull your car up to the front door and you walk right into your room. And but in that motel room, it was clear to me my mother's abilities were much greater than cleaning motel rooms. I learned the value of hard work. I learned the value of family. I learned the value of teamwork, but I also learned a very important lesson. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but I was learning to live your life with purpose. And for my mother, those 4 little boys, that was her focus and purpose. And I saw that real time, living it out, your purpose. And so while that was not unveiled to me later in life as I matured, I reflect back on those times. And through that process, Nicole, I received a lot of hand-ups, not handouts, but hand-ups, which is what I define as an opportunity to display my full talents and with high expectations. And so through that process, I was able to go to Indiana University, started working in corporate America, and ended up leading Comcast West, one of the largest divisions of our company, responsible for over 30,000 employees, $18 billion in revenue, serving over 13 million customers. So what a journey. But the major message, Nicole, I want people to take away, while the American dream is difficult, challenging, it is available. It's available through hard work and focus, and certainly with the hand up of a lot of people helping you.
When you talk about this victim mindset that you were the perfect victim set up for that, but you weren't that. I think about this idea of why, and I was thinking about the contrast of the why or why not. Some people have a why that drives them. Some people have a why not. This is why I'm not where I could be. So talk a little bit about how you found your why and didn't go down that path of why not.
Well, what really helped was my mother really did not allow victims. This was not a democratic household, Nicole. There was one sheriff, and she called the shots, and we're very blessed. But Nicole, I'm inspired by the Mark Twain quote: the two most important days in your life is the day you're born, and the second is when you know why. So let's just start there with the premise that all of us have been placed on this earth for a reason. And it's hard for me to believe that any of us were placed here to do damage or to do harm. I truly believe we were all placed here to make a difference. And so for me, my why was revealed through challenge. I was fired. I had early success in my career. And while I had a sense of my purpose, especially working in the motel room, it was not really revealed to me until I had to go through heartache and challenge. Here's the context. I left Indiana University, and I had a lot of early success, probably too much success. I started off selling. I was carrying a sales bag. I was rookie of the year. I was the top quota breaker, got quickly promoted, and then got quickly promoted again. I was the sales manager for our Michigan region for American Hospital Supply. I was the youngest sales manager in the company's history. And so, Nicole, I thought success was defined by everything that I did, how much work I put in, how much focus I applied, my success. It didn't transition in my brain that once you're leading men and women, your focus has to be on them, and your enjoyment and success comes through their success. I didn't realize that. And as a result, my team was not performing. We were 30 out of 30, so we were dead last for all the regions within the company. And within a year, I was fired. And here's what happened, Nicole. The day I got fired, my lowest point in my life at that point, Darnell Martin, who's no longer with us, called me. He worked for another part of the company in another division, and said, "Steve, I see more in you than you see in yourself. But if you continue to lead the way you're leading, you will not enjoy success. So I'll move you to Chicago. You'll come work for me. You don't have a portfolio. You don't have a real job. I will create a job so you can see how leaders lead and care for their men and women." And Nicole, for 6 or 7 months, I just soaked in his leadership style. I saw the way men and women responded to him. And then I saw the results of that business unit and what they were able to accomplish. And the more and more I got exposed to that, it took me back to that motel room where my mother was sacrificing for her 4 boys. And through that process, let's say my why was reintroduced to me. And from that day on, I said my why is all about creating a table of prosperity for others. And what happens, Nicole, the more you pour into others, the more the results come, the more they promote you. And that's how you differentiate yourself as a leader. So that's how I discovered my why, through great heartache and hardship and challenge. But boy, I'm so glad that I got fired from that job, because it really put me and placed me on the right path.
This is so good, because I think of all of the guests that I've had on this show, and I've had over 400 amazing difference makers, world changers, not one of them said, "Hey, everything was great, and I just went from success to success, from mountaintop to mountaintop, and here I am." and if they did, nobody would be inspired by that story anyway.
Right.
So, you think about the adversity, and I love what you said there at the end, is that I was grateful. I'm glad that I got fired. And so talk about that, because I know for a fact there are people right now, and they may or may not be listening to this podcast, but hopefully they will be, that they have had hardship. And I know I've had hardship in my life. And you focus on all the things that aren't, why me or whatever. You can go through that pity party, but then there's the so what now what? What are we gonna do with that? But there's a lot of people that are in that place right now of looking at what isn't and what they have lost, and maybe even what has been done to them. And so you had your mom who set that example. You had Darnell who set that example. For those that don't have that example, you can be that example today and share with them. What would you tell them in terms of how to get themselves back up and moving forward, to be able to even see the blessing in it? Because if they can see the blessing, then they can start moving forward. But if they get stuck on the loss, they get stuck on the pain and the victim mindset, then they just never, they give up before the game even starts.
Yeah, I'm going to steal one of your lines, Nicole. One of the things I like to do when I meet someone or introduce myself or get on a conversation, I say, "Are you winning today?" And Nicole, one of your lines, which I love, is, "If I'm not winning, Steve, I'm learning." And I think that's a critical piece. So everything starts with radical responsibility. So when I got fired, it challenged me to look deep within myself to say, what did I do to contribute to this situation? And yes, was it unfair? Probably. Could I have received more coaching? Maybe. But guess what? It didn't change anything. I could sit there and come up with all of these excuses, but at the end of the day, it did not make a difference. I had to dust myself off and move forward. And what I learned from that situation was that I could be better. So everything starts with radical responsibility. I own me. I can't force someone else to like me. I can't force someone else to do something. All I can do is own me. So everything starts with radical responsibility. Number two, every challenge is a significant learning opportunity. If you will just pause and take the time and maybe sometimes even seek feedback, you will take that as a learning experience. Life is about mistakes. But the most important thing, Nicole, is you don't repeat the same mistake over and over, because success is not a straight line. It is actually a crooked road. And to appreciate success, sometimes you have to go through a little heartache. And I've found in my life the best learning experiences have been through challenge and adversity. So radical responsibility, start there, and that'll really set you on the right path.
Yeah, and I can attest to that too. It's like I talk about our business. We had a successful business and it fell apart. I learned a lot on the way up, but I learned even more on the way down. And I wouldn't want to trade it for anything. Don't want to repeat it, but I don't want to trade it for anything. And I think about even personal relationships, some of the experience that I've had, the difficult situations. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to repeat it. That's why I extracted the learning as much as I could, spent the time there. So often I think of, actually, Glenn Lundy was on this show a while back, and he was talking about being on the beach, and he was trying to commit suicide. Didn't work. He came back, ended up back on the beach again. And he was sitting there and he was thinking, like, how did I get here? So often people are thinking, how do I get out of this situation? He said, the first thing is to figure out, how did I get here? And take that radical responsibility and ownership of, okay, this is where I am, and maybe sit in it for a minute, so that you can actually, or a few minutes, so that you can actually get the lesson from it. So that when you move on, you don't find yourself cycling back into that. So that is so good. Let's talk about your book.
I love what you say. Can I add one more point to that? I think the other critical point, Nicole, is surround yourself with what I call road dogs. These are truth tellers. These are people that care about you enough to give you honest feedback. So as you're going through your journey, having men and women around you that you can go to. So in my case, I have a kitchen cabinet. It's about 7 people. And sometimes people come in and out based on the situation. But I don't make any major decisions without consulting this cabinet of leaders. And they're not all corporate executives. Some are frontline employees. But I gain a perspective on the direction I'm headed. And that helps me stay on the straight and narrow particularly that crooked road to success. So I would just add that to our other folks, because I often get asked, what advice, Steve, would you give to your younger self? Be careful who you surround yourself with, because if you have people that are not feeding your vision, they're distracting from it, and that ultimately will bring you down.
That is perfect. And I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to ask you about that later on, because of you talk about the story, even in your book, about you could have been this person, but you turned out to be this person. And so it is the power of association and who you're with. And I love what you said there, is because if they're not adding, some people think that they have friends who are like, oh, it's kind of neutral. There's no neutral. There's no neutral. They're either adding to you or they're taking away from. So which is it? And the question also I would challenge our listeners to think about is, which are you for the people around you? Are you adding to them, or are you taking away and drawing from? And sometimes in relationships, there are times when I am investing in, and sometimes I'm receiving from, but it's a different, what you're talking about, it's that different relationship where it is a mutual support of each other. And some people are having, when you have a hard time, you want to be able to have somebody who can encourage you. But if you're always that person that's just strictly drawing from, then maybe that's something to consider as well. But let's talk about your book, because Uncompromising, you in that book, you talk about some of these principles, you talk about these pathways to success and fulfillment. So maybe touch on them, and which ones, or maybe if there's one that's the most important that kind of stands out, we can dive a little bit further into that for today. And then of course the book can be the follow-up to that.
Well, I'll start with the title, because in life is about compromise. As a married man with a wonderful wife, I understand compromise. But I go back to that quote, the two most important days of your life. Let's start with the premise that we're all placed on this earth for a reason. So, Nicole, once you identify that is what you're ruthless about. That is what you're uncompromising in your pursuit of excellence relative to your purpose on life. And that is why Uncompromising is such a perfect title for this book. And then I talk about these 7 pathways that I have utilized to help me reach a level of impact, legacy, and success. Still a work in progress. But everything starts, number one, with find your fight, find your purpose. And people say, well, Steve, how do I find my purpose? I'll start with 3 questions. So it certainly starts with a great deal of reflection. Go to that kitchen cabinet, seek advice. But everything starts with, what are you passionate about? Number 2, what do you think you're good at? Now, be honest with yourself. I think I'm a good singer. My wife tells me something totally different. And number 3, Nicole, if you had to do it, would you do it for free? If you could answer those 3 questions, and then you start to see some themes there, you're on your way to identifying why you've been placed on this earth. So that's number 1. Number 2, quickly, is focus on the real prize. There's so many distractions out there. Stay focused on your why and your purpose, because now it gives you a framework of how you make decisions, how you spend your time, how you live your life. My mother would say, tell me how you spend your time. I'll tell you what's important to you. Number 3, live life as a learning lab. This is a journey. You will make mistakes, but continue to grow. Number 4, and this is an interesting one, and this is one I'm particularly tied to, think and act like a business. Invest in you Incorporated. While Comcast pays my salary, I work for Steve White Incorporated, and Comcast purchases my services. So when I start thinking about myself as the owner of my own journey, how I invest in my company totally changes my approach. Number 5, there are only 2 things in life, Nicole, that you can control: your attitude and effort. I'm going to outwork you. And that, people define that as working 24/7. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I am going to have my focus on making my company stronger and putting results together. And when I get punched in the stomach, I'm going to respond with a positive attitude. Number 6, navigate life in its uncertainty, because there's no straight line to success. And the final one, number 7, we just talked about, commit to road dog relationships. Where I grew up in the city of Indianapolis, Nicole, a road dog is someone they've always got your back. A fight breaks out, and I'm not promoting fighting, but they jump in. They don't ask any questions because they believe in you. And they care so much about you that they'll actually tell you the truth. And so when you can have a number of those relationships, the number's not important. It could be one, it could be two, it could be three, but you need to have men and women in your life that will speak truth to you. And so those are the 7 pathways that I found that really allow me to make a difference. And the one that particularly I'm attracted to is the attitude and effort, because that's you. You're in control of your effort and attitude. And that is what I believe can lead to a life of success, impact, and legacy.
Yeah, I think about the book Viktor Frankl. It's somewhere on that shelf of books behind me, but he talks about in his book Man's Search for Meaning. And here he is in a concentration camp. They have stripped him of everything and all dignity that they felt that they could strip from him, his clothes, his everything. And here he is, and he says, and I'm paraphrasing, but he just says, I discovered that the only thing that they can't take away from me is my ability to choose my attitude. And wow, if he can say that in that circumstance, then any circumstance that we're in, we can say that as well. And so
Yeah,
I love that.
I love that. Let me give you another quote, Shakespeare quote: "Nothing is good, nothing is bad. Thinking makes it so." And so one of the reasons I get up so early in the morning, one is I like having a little private time, but it allows me to get my mind right. I reflect. In my case, I pray. Some people meditate. I pray. It allows me to put on my shield of armor to approach the day. And so for me, I need that time. And so whatever works for you, it could be evening, it could be lunchtime, it could be when you're dropping your kids off, after you drop off your kids at school. Find some time just for you so you can reflect on what's important, which then allows you to approach the day with that shield of armor.
Yes. Yes. It's that reset. We take a shower, we eat, we rest, but how often do we do that for our mind? And every successful person does it. And the more successful they are, the more intentional they are about doing it and what they're focusing on. So I love that. Thank you for pointing that out. These daily habits, these are the things. This is the effort part. This is the attitude part. This is the taking responsibility, radical responsibility for it. I love it. Now you talk about the concept of you Inc., which is a big, I love that. That's something I've talked about. I know Burke Hedges wrote a book many years ago called You Inc., and I really latched on to that. This idea of owning your own company, for those that have never heard that concept, talk a little bit more about it. You're not saying that you have you might have a former LLC set up, but that's not actually what you're talking about. You're talking about it from a mindset standpoint.
Yeah, let me give you an example. I was counseling someone. He says, my boss does not develop me. My boss does not train me. And sometimes we're blessed with a great boss who pours into us. They're always thinking about how they can develop us and then hold on to that boss. But you and I know, Nicole, that's not most bosses. And so as opposed to waiting for your boss to enroll you in some of the training and development programs that your company offer, you go enroll yourself. You go identify your issues and opportunities and where you can develop. That's the mindset of, this is my company. I'm going to own it and I'm going to move forward. Let me give you one other example. Oftentimes, and I fell into this trap, I would get upset if my career was not moving up, if I was not going from a supervisor to a manager to a director to a vice president, because I was measuring myself against all of these other people. Sometimes, Nicole, I've taken lateral moves because it gave me a level of experience and skills that I did not own. So when you own your own company and you're thinking and acting like a business, you're thinking long term. You're not thinking in months, in weeks, you're thinking in years. In some cases, you're thinking in decades. And that's how a company thinks. If you think about the great companies in America, Amazon, Comcast, AT&T, Google, these folks, they have 5 and 10-year strategic plans of where they want to be 10 years from now. You take the same approach, and then that allows you to make smart decisions, that allows you to make sure your company is very strong. We're not here for short-term gratification. We're here for long-term success. And just that mindset changes your approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a perfect segue to talk about the great resignation that's happening right now, because there's a lot of people that are getting restless in their jobs, not satisfied, and are leaving and looking for something else. So talk a little bit about that for the people that are restless and want to leave. To your point, they're saying they're not doing and they're not giving and offering all this. Talk, maybe give some tips for them, then also the leaders in those organizations that are losing people, that are trying to keep their best talent. What would you say to
Yeah.
them?
Yeah, such a good question. And Nicole, Great Resignation has taken on a whole life of its own. I call it the Great Reset. And people say, what are you talking about? The reason I believe people are restless is because they're not enjoying what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you're excited, right? Let's go back to those three questions. If you're passionate about it and you believe you're good at it, and you, in some cases, you would do it for free, you can't wait to get back to the office. You can't wait to see your teammates because you want to go in there and put your skill set to the table. So the first thing starts with, am I living my purpose? What gets my boat floating, as they like to say? And if it does not, don't do something radical and go quit. Keep doing a good job because you're building your skill, but stay focused on your long-term plan, because there might be an opportunity that presents itself 6 months from now, 9 months from now. But don't be impatient where you go out and make a short-term decision and quit your job. And then for the bosses, what a great way to start the conversation to say, Nicole, before we talk about all the things I need you to do in your job, tell me about you. What is it you're trying to accomplish? What is your greatest hopes and dreams for your company? And what does that look like? And then that gives the boss the perfect opportunity to talk about the mission of that company and how it connects with your purpose and why. And when that boss can make that connection, now all of a sudden, we're now having a real conversation, not about today, but tomorrow. So in both cases, just creating the space for that conversation is the way to go. Let me give you an example. Bosses are struggling to get people back to work. But I don't know about you, Nicole. I'm still traveling. The airports are jammed. I watched the Super Bowl. There were 100,000 people side by side, no mask. So clearly people have gotten past this initial shock of the COVID virus, and they believe they can do things that'll keep them and their families safe. But why are they not anxious to go back to the office? Each of us should challenge ourselves to say, something's amiss. How do I go deal with it? And I think it starts with that honest conversation about purpose and where you're trying to take your company.
Yeah, it's what you were talking about before. It's like that gift in the midst of adversity, that gift in the midst of unrest, and saying, okay, what am I learning about this in this moment? And it comes back to how important the why is, which is your book, right? The unwavering commitment to your why is what leads to an impactful life and a lasting legacy. It's this why. If you know why, then you'll figure out the how and even maybe the what,
That's
so I
exactly
love
right.
that.
And it takes a conscious decision. Let me give you one little trick that I use. Every year at the end of the year, my wife and I, Barbita, we have a young son, Stevie. We even bring him now into this process. He's 9 years old. And we select what is our headline for the year for our family. We do it individually and then as a family. And so our headline for 2022 is we choose joy. So that means every morning, individually and collectively, we wake up and we say, we choose joy today, because we know there's going to be adversity, but we choose joy. And so what I want our listeners to think about is every morning, wake up and say, what is my why? And that's what I choose today. And although you might not be in the situation that you desire, don't let your circumstances, I'm going to go back to the motel room, don't let your circumstances dictate your attitude, your effort, and how you approach today. What's freeing, Nicole, is you know where you want to go. You might be in that situation, just like we were in that motel room, but my mother had a clear vision for her 4 little boys. And so therefore, she was not trapped by her environment or her circumstances. It was freeing because she had a North Star of where she was trying to go. So every morning or every night, whatever works for you, choose, make a conscious decision that I'm going to live my why. And I'm going to reiterate to myself what my North Star is. And that will give you the momentum you need to approach every day with the best attitude and the best effort.
Yes, and one last thing with that is the word that comes to mind is excellence. When you're doing things that you want to be doing, that you're inspired, that you love to do, that you're good at, and that then again are connected to a why that is a deeper impact and reason, is that you're going to do things with excellence. You're going to want to do things better. You're not going to. So your mom, I think about what a hero she is, what a leader of transformation she is, because I know from reading the book, you talk about your success and your brother and the rest of your family. It's like, wow, your mom was so transformative in the way that that she raised you. Started in that motel room, and when she did it, I will guarantee you don't even have to say that she did it with excellence. And she probably taught you to do it with, if you're going to do it, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're sweeping the floors, do it with excellence, because that will give you I think about somebody years ago said, I want to get paid more. I was working in this environment, and she wasn't working for me, but she was working there as well. And she said, I want to get a raise. And I said to her, well, before you get a raise, you got to increase your value. And all you say is, that's not my job. And that's not my job. And that's not my job. And so it is. It's not going to be your job, right? And you're going to get paid. So it's this idea of stepping out, creating that value, doing things with excellence. And that will give you the opportunity to be promoted, for people to notice you. One of our recent guests, Stephen Dosu, he came from Togo, Africa, and found himself didn't find himself. He actually went to South Africa and took about 18 months to get there, walking, however he got there. He just knew he needed to change his environment. When he was there, he was selling apples and so forth in the market and doing it with such excellence, like you're talking about. And as a result of that, he didn't know, but there was somebody watching him. And somebody came over and said, tomorrow, I want you to go here and interview for this job. Of course, he walked in, the woman saw the confidence and the passion and the commitment that he had. You're talking about the attitude and the effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And said, you have the job, and let me tell you what the job is now. And he said, I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know what a vacuum cleaner was, let alone I was going to sell these vacuum cleaners. But he said, yes, I can figure it out. And that's the same thing. So if we hear all these stories and we remind ourselves, it's like, people have done it. So if somebody's listening out there, it's like, you can do it as well. Just do things with excellence. Don't wait to get the position to do things with excellence. Do things with excellence now. And don't be, like you said, it's the uncompromising attitude that you have towards it. Can you just talk about that as we finish?
Yeah, I love what you said. Let me just kind of highlight here. I think about men and women that have made a significant difference, whether it's Michael Jordan in sports, or Elon Musk in what he's doing, or Jeff Bezos. Whether you like them individually or not, that's not the point. But I think we all can agree they have been true game changers, Steve Jobs and others. But the thing that I noticed, Nicole, about all of them is they have found a way to reach excellence by competing against themselves, not someone else. They look themselves in the mirror, and they know if they gave it their all that day. And so excellence comes from within, because if you're comparing yourself or competing against someone else, that is a short-term motivation and inspiration. But when you're on this journey of fulfilling your purpose and reaching your full potential, which we never do, that is what picks you up on that off day. So find your inner self and compete against yourself. That's where I believe these successful people find excellence. Because when you think about it, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, they've been so successful. Why are they still at it? You would think they would just go away somewhere and go play golf or go to the beach, but they're still in the arena because they know they have not reached their full potential. If Michael Jordan could continue to play basketball, my sense is he would be playing basketball, but we all age and all of that. But Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, they're leaving this earth doing what they love.
Yeah.
And because they know they never reach their full potential.
Yeah. It's the love of the game. It's the love of the why.
Love of the game.
Yes. I
And
love
that's
that.
why it's so important, Nicole. What are you passionate about? What do you think you're good at? And then what would you do for free? Not you never will, because you'll be so good at it. People actually pay you for it.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, Steve, so much. You're just inspiring, but not just inspiring with motivation, but you're inspiring with practical tips. This is how you did it. This is what works. This is what you can do to move forward. And so I so appreciate the way that you've approached this topic. So thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Great, Nicole. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on and speak to your listeners. Go to stevewhitespeaks.com. You can find out how to follow me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. The website is a place of learning and growth, so you can hang out there, but you can also find out more about the book Uncompromising, which is available now in audio, ebook, and hardback cover. So please go out and partake. And if you like the book, please share it with someone that you love and respect. And for all of our leaders, get it for your teams. I truly believe having a conversation as a group around leadership and some of these principles, not only will it elevate you, but I think it'll elevate your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It'll be a game changer. So go get a copy of that book. And for you and for your leaders, highly recommend that. Steve, again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our listeners for being here. I trust that you got so much out of this. And if this has inspired you, if this has equipped you, you know what, like Steve said about sharing, share it with someone else. If there's somebody that you know that is going through a difficult season and maybe even slipped into that victim mindset for a minute, you know what, send this to them, give them that lifeline of encouragement for them to get out of that victim mindset so they can start to succeed where they are, just step by step, climb out of that place. So it's possible. You can do it. They can do it. If it's been done before, you can do it again. So I encourage you that. And we'd love to hear your stories. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com, contact us through our website. You can go on, of course, and find us on social and follow us there as well. And we just appreciate you being here. And stay tuned next week. We've got another amazing guest that we'll be talking with next week. And we'll just continue this journey and helping you and equipping you to be the leader of transformation that you're capable of being. Steve mentioned in the beginning, he believed that every single person is here with a purpose. And if you are alive and if you are listening to this, you are here for a reason and you have a purpose. You are capable of being a leader of transformation. That I know. And so we just want to encourage you in that and believe that, and then take the actions necessary to make it happen. God bless you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.